Hello and welcome back to Lab 2, installing and configuring an ESXi host. We've returned to the task and we're looking at task 4, adding an ESXi host Active Directory. I'm Richard Golson and I'm going to walk you through this task. So in this task we add that ESXi host that we just created in the previous task to an Active Directory by accessing the ESXi Web Client. So we'll be doing it from the ESXi Web Client. Now the best practice is to avoid creating local users on a host. So if we're going to be logging into the host, we want to first join it to a Windows domain and log in with domain credentials instead. But in order to do that, we're first going to have to log into that VMware web host client. So let's take a look at that now. So if you take a look over here, you can see that I've already entered the IP address for that new ESXi server. At this point, I'm given a typical warning message saying basically that it doesn't like the certificate that's been used. And in a production environment, you would typically install some certificates that you created, then you configure your servers to accept your local certification authority using Active Directory in this case. But we don't have anything like that set up, so we're just going to go ahead and not worry about this. We're in a sandbox environment. We know that address. We don't have to worry about spoofing and that sort of thing. So I'll hit the My Advanced button here, and here you can see that it's telling us it can't verify the identity. We're not going to worry about that. We'll accept the risk and continue. And the UI for logging into that VMware host client is now displayed, which looks a bit different than our vSphere client. So now we're going to be logging on to that ESXi host client. So we'll need the credentials for that, and our credential or our account is root, and as I mentioned earlier, root allows you to do practically anything. So in an ongoing way, we wouldn't want to continue to use root, and that's the whole purpose of this task, is to add this to Active Directory so we could then use accounts from Active Directory to log in and use least privileges and that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and put these credentials in now. So it's going to be root. Oops, let me click into that. And the password is that new password that we sent on this server. So it's VMware123 with a exclamation mark or a bang. And we hit the login button. We may get a help us improve the VMware host client window. It's popping up here. And usually what I just do is uncheck that and say OK and make it go away. Now we're getting some messages about here. On here about the ESXi shell that we enabled, and from here we could actually disable it. The same thing with secure shell. We can just ignore those right now. We're not concerned about that. What I do want to do is take a look over here and see that we're going to go to the manage node of this ESXi server. And so right now we're on the host page, and it gives us the big overview of the host, the CPU, memory, etc. If I go to manage and then select security and users, it's from here that I can then select authentication and see that currently it's not joined to a domain. So what I'm going to do is join this ESXi server to an Active Directory domain, and then I'll be able to use Active Directory to log on to it and manage the server. We'll see that coming up. So I'll hit the join domain button. And then I need to enter the domain information. So this is not using the usual V-class domain that we've been seeing. This is an actual Active Directory domain that's been built into this lab. So we'll go ahead and enter the credentials for that. So the domain itself is at netlab.local. And they built this specifically for use in this lab. And then the credentials I'm going to use to authenticate this is going to be the administrator account in that Active Directory domain. And the password is going to be the one that was configured for that administrator account, which is training with a 1 and a $sign. And then what I'll do is hit join domain. Now this can take a little bit of time. There it goes. This went pretty fast. The other day when I was doing this, it actually took a lot longer. And there is a refresh button you can try. We should also see that in recent tasks, we'll see updates occurring, etc. And if we go into logs, we could actually look at some settings in there as well. But now we've actually configured that. Now for this lab, the user administrator was already added to the Active Directory and is a member of the ESX admins domain group. So there's a ESX domain admins domain group that is part of that Active Directory domain, and the administrator was added to that. This group has full administrative rights to join the ESXi Host 2 domains, and so the administrator account as a member of that group has the full administrative rights to make that happen. So I've successfully enabled Active Directory on this ESXi 04 host. My domain membership status shows OK. That means the domain controller verified that ESX 04 status is joined. And join domain shows I have joined the netlab.local domain. So I'll leave this ESXi Web Client open and continue in my next task. I'll see you then.